but she is only succeeding because she's being authentic and showcasing and surfacing to the world who she really is. So the idea of competition is an illusion.
You are the person writing your story.
Okay, so today we're talking about the ego. So the ego is such an interesting thing because it's so powerful, but most of us don't know about it. And before we even speak about that, I think it's important for us to maybe talk about thoughts first, which is the ego, but the ego is a little bit more complex, right? So if you guys know, I want to make sure this is interactive. So if you know what the ego is or you have a certain idea, make sure you comment. Let me know what you think the ego is and what your experience has been, and share with the group and everyone that's watching. So really quick. So talking about thoughts. A lot of us go on our day-to-day thinking and identifying with our brain and our thoughts instead of seeing the clear separation. And most of the time that's because we just haven't been taught to understand that. And for me, my journey started probably understanding the separation in 2014 when I graduated college. And that was because I had patterns or things I was doing that I knew wasn't me, right? I was reactive. I said a lot of things I didn't mean. I essentially pushed people away. And a lot of the time, after an hour or a couple of days, I would notice that what I said, and really quick, people saying, their ego is self-esteem or sense of self-worth, and which is right. That's a huge piece of it. So, and as I mentioned, so again, going back to my story about, saying things I didn't mean and I didn't identify with, what I would notice is after some time, a day or two, or sometimes even hours, when I became present again, then I would notice that what I said wasn't me. Like, I would never speak to a friend like that. I would never, say that to a stranger or a colleague or, a parent, a mother, my mom or my dad. So, and then I came across this powerful book, which everyone should read. It was life-changing, which was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And he is my dad, my spiritual dad. He's a spiritual teacher, and he's just been incredible. It transformed my life completely. Okay, so let's dive into it. So really quick, this question that always came up before, or might have came up, was, oh, someone said I'm freezing. I do not want to be freezing. I'm connected to Wi-Fi. So hopefully I'm not freezing, guys. I'm going to keep talking, and I hope I'm not. All right, so back to thoughts, right? So a lot of the times I remember growing up and people would ask, are you the person listening to your thoughts, or are you your thoughts, right? Are you the person listening, or are you talking, essentially? And really what it was is the true answer to that question, although we're not taught, is we are the person listening, right? So you can't be both. Essentially, you cannot be like an object and be looking at the object, right? So you can't be the person observing and the actual object. So in Eckhart Tolle explained this so perfectly, because he said, for you to understand you are not your thoughts, or you're really you're not one with who you really are, is to really think about you in a dreaming, right? So when you go to sleep and you are just like watching your thoughts, when you wake up, you disidentify, right? You're like, okay, I was sleeping, that wasn't me. But when we wake up and we're just going day to day, anything our mind says, we kind of just identify with it. We kind of just go with what it's saying, rather than really analyzing if it's really, really what I feel. And being able to disidentify with your thoughts is when you start becoming conscious. That's where awareness starts. When you start realizing, okay, these thoughts, and guys, if you're coming in, say hi. I want to know who's logged in. We're speaking about the ego, and essentially our thoughts. So back to it, when you start realizing, or for a second, when you're in emotion, for example, you're in an emotional state and you are, let's say, arguing with someone, and you're in your emotions, at that point, if you start, saying things you don't mean, you are unconscious. You are speaking from what the topic is today, from the ego rather than you. So if we go back to my example that I was explaining in the beginning of how, I would say things I didn't mean, and then later on, when I finally came into presence, when I took control again, I would be upset at myself. I would be like, why would I say that? That's because in that moment when I allowed myself to identify with the ego, I was no longer present. I was speaking from, my thoughts rather than who I truly am, my essence, which is really more of a feeling. And so going back, okay, so if we're not our thoughts, who are we? Eckhart Tolle says we are the space in between our thoughts. We are the space in between, the words that is said in our brain. So for right now, everyone that is listening, for us to really find out what the space feels like, we're going to do a quick experiment. And sorry if I'm talking quick, guys. I feel like I didn't want to do this for too long. So I limit myself to 12 minutes, but I can also make it longer for future. Again, it's my first time. So I will improve as this goes on. Again, so for us to find out what this space is, right? This feeling of who we truly are and not our thoughts. Let's do this experiment. And I will simply ask you to think about what is your next thought that is coming into your mind right now. Did anything come up? Most of the time, or always, when you ask that question, actually nothing comes. You are not able to listen. You're not able to, a thought doesn't come in, and in that moment, there is presence. In that moment, there is you. So this live is about really, as we're learning, we're evolving, and we're becoming more conscious of who we are. And as we want to grow, the most important thing is to disidentify with our thoughts, to disidentify with our ego. And now you might be wondering, okay, if thoughts is thoughts and ego is ego, what's the difference? So our thoughts is just, compilations of things people have said to us, our experience, our culture, people in our lives, and all the imprinting that they've had. And even some scientists believe that there is a collective consciousness that we are able to tap into. So, these negative thoughts that you might have sometimes, you might look at something, look at someone and judge them and say, oh my God, or, she's fat, or, oh my God, why does she look that way? And then you're like, oh, that was mean. Why did I say that? Again, that is not you. That is just your thoughts. Okay? So, moving back to thoughts versus ego, your thoughts is a compilation of your experience, things people have told you are, in the collective consciousness. And then ego is actually the fake self, the self that you identify with that is actually not you. So that's important to understand. So sometimes our thoughts or, our minds will say things to us that is not you, and is not real, but you will react. And as we evolve again and we want to be more conscious and we want to, really be ourselves and authentic in the world, we have to start gaining an awareness of that presence and that feeling that is us versus our thoughts, right? And I tell all my clients, my female clients that I work with, emotions and the ego is not the enemy. That is not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is the ego is unconscious. You're the conscious being, okay? So if you're the conscious being, you have to be in control of your thoughts. You have to be in control of what it says. And how you can be in control of it, I can give you an example, is if you're at a business meeting, right, with a colleague and you do a presentation, and for me at least, I move my hands a lot when I'm talking. So my colleague might pull me aside and say, hey, Leyanne, Leyanne, you're doing a great job with your work, but you're just moving your hands a lot. Like, why do you keep doing that? Take it down a notch. In that moment, my ego, my self-defense mechanism that is simply there to just protect me, and let's also be aware that it's unconscious. It will say, what is she talking about? I move my hands because that's what I do. I'm passionate about something, so I speak that way, right? And it's okay for it to say that it's trying to defend me, but bringing it back, you are the conscious person. So if you react and you become the ego and you allow it to take control, then in that moment, you will say things that you don't mean. That woman is there, or that man or the colleague that you're with is having a discussion for you to grow. She or he is having a discussion with you for you to be able to evolve as a person. Check your ego in that moment and say, okay, I hear you, ego. But, she's only here trying to help me. So instead you say, okay, yeah, I totally understand. Give me more feedback. But most of us, because we identify with our ego in our thoughts and we think it's us, we will react in that moment and actually say the ignorant bullshit that our mind can say at times. Okay? So understanding and moving forward, as we practice, the separation and we start disidentifying with our ego, and I do see people joining. If you're joining, say hi. We are talking about ego and the separation and disidentifying with our thoughts rather than us. If you have questions, I'm going to stroll through the comments that I'm getting. I know I can't keep up with them all. As I'm getting at the end, I will stroll down and I'll read any questions that you might have. So at the end, I'll do, a last minute Q&A. All right. So as we, move forward, what are the action steps? Okay. So Leyanne, I understand, I'm not the ego. I'm not the mind. So, my thoughts will say things that I don't mean. So how do I move forward from this and not reacting? How do I actually respond? And for you to respond, all you have to do is bring it back to listening, to understanding you're not the person speaking in your mind. You're actually the one listening. So for example, when it says something negative, most of the time, at least from my experience, dealing with my ego, and it's still, a daily thing. I'm still working through it. But it's gotten a whole lot better, I can tell you that. So in the beginning, because our thoughts are connected to our emotions, what tends to happen is when it starts saying negative things and it's trying to protect you, you actually feel emotions in your body. So you'll either be angry, upset, frustrated, and be with the feeling, and if you can't speak, right, because you're so angry, but okay, it's saying this about the person in front of me. I don't believe it. It's not true. I'm not going to react. I want to respond. In the beginning, it's going to be hard because, again, most of us have been identifying with our thoughts. So it's going to be hard in the process of disidentification. But if you want to grow and you want to be more aware, if you want to be a conscious being in this planet, right, because we are human beings. So you are human, but the essence of you is a being. So you have to be present and actually practice being. Okay? So in that moment, again, when we're going back to being in a place or in an interaction that the ego is really loud and your thoughts is just going, what you can do is, bite your lip. If you're really at an emotional state that your emotion is just, going, and you feel like you can't stop it and you really want to say and speak with the ego, the most important spiritual practice I have learned is to control my ego. So it's a spiritual practice in that moment for you to not engage with the ego and just be quiet. Don't give it any energy because, again, you're disidentifying. It takes time. It's hard. So I will say in my experience, the first level is first, it's hard. And I remember biting my tongue. And I'll just be like, or biting my lip. I hear what you're saying, but I'm pissed off. Like, I'm ready to go at you. I went from 0 to 100. Like, I'm angry. I want to say things to hurt you because in reality, I feel hurt. So I really just want to hurt you. And then, knowing that's not me, knowing that I don't want to hurt anyone, knowing that, truly the essence of who I am inside, the person in, the being that I've been with so many years, so compassionate, I don't want to be that person. I moved on now to biting my lip and I wouldn't say nothing. Then moving on, it went from biting my lip to actually expressing myself and saying, even though my mind is saying these things that I know is not me, even though it's saying these things that are, is making me angry, I just can't speak right now. I'm going to walk away. And I started walking away. And then level 3, because that's where I'm currently at. Now it's funny. Like, I find my thoughts to be funny. Once you get control of your thoughts, you start to become aligned with who you are. Like, and I'll be authentic and vulnerable and honest with you guys. Before I came on this live, my mind was saying, yo, run. I was ready to continue in my comfort zone and not go live. But again, the conscious being, who I am, the one that is in control, click the button for me to go live, because I know that I am in control and not my thoughts. So when you go again from level 3, now you're going to be able to actually hear your thoughts. I'm going to be in interaction. For example, I can give you, a recent thing, kind of recent that happened to me is, let's say a couple of my friends, went out and I wasn't invited. No one messaged me, but I got, we have social media, so I'm able to connect with them in that way. And I noticed that they went out without me. My ego, my self-defense mechanism, because it's trying to defend me, because in that moment I was hurt. In that moment it said, fuck them. Like, okay, I'm gonna cuss at, like, why would they think to not call me? Why would they not think to, message me? Like, it's going all crazy. And in that moment I took control of my thoughts and I said, no. My friends care about me. Instead of me being judgmental, which is not me, instead of me being, crucifying them without knowing what's going on, let me be curious about what is going on with them. Let me instead ask them what is going on. And at the end of the day, it wasn't nothing big. So the more you do this, right, the more you understand that you are not your thoughts, the more you practice, because it's a constant practice. The more you practice, the more you start dissolving the ego. The reason why I moved from biting my lip to expressing to now listening to it, and it's like, you're ridiculous, ego. I hear you. Like I should get a name for it. I don't know why I haven't yet. Like Paula, I hear you. But no, Leyanne knows what's up, and my girls care about me, and they went out, and for whatever reason that happened, it had nothing to do specifically with me. You don't have to defend yourself. In this moment, I don't need you to defend yourself. Okay? Again, guys, if you have any questions from anything I'm saying in comments, for the people logging in, we are talking about disidentifying with your ego, right? So disidentify. Yes, Ryan, Paula, because it just seems like a girl that is not me. Very far from Leyanne, because my ego is something else. So again, we're talking about disidentifying with your thoughts, disidentifying with your ego, which is a process, which is something that is not, it's not an easy thing. But if you want to continue growing, if you want to be a spiritual being, if you want to come and impact this world, you have to be able to understand the difference between you and your thoughts. Or you are not bringing who you are, your authentic self, to the world. Instead, you are bringing ego, your thoughts, all these things that is not you. And, moving again from the ego not being bad. So here are some benefits of the ego, right? So like I mentioned, the ego is a self-defense mechanism. So it's here to help you. It's here to protect you. If you're in a toxic relationship and your thoughts are saying, get out. That's when it starts defending you. That's when you actually start listening, but from a conscious place. You don't let it take over. You start listening. Other places like that it can benefit you is with confidence. Like you just being like, okay, this person is who they are. They have all this amazing ability, but this is who I am. And being able to befriend the ego is the best thing you can do, because you can use it as a tool for when it's best serving you, and not let it control you and become a monster that it can be. Again, I think that's kind of what I wanted to cover. I just really wanted people to understand the importance of the separation between ego and self. Because the more you separate your thoughts from yourself, the more you become a lion, the more you can live the life you want, the more you can show the world who you are, and the more you can find out about who you are, because the ego will show you very interesting things about yourself. Okay, so I kind of covered everything I wanted to talk about. I'm going to stroll through the comments really quick. If you have any questions, I know some people are joining now. We're ending where you're just talking about disidentifying with your thoughts and the ego, and just showing up as your best self to the world and not being your thoughts. So, now I'm looking through the comments and seeing what people had. So the questions that someone had, or even a comment, was sometimes we use ego as a guard to protect us from exposing our true feelings. Absolutely. It allows us to not be vulnerable. It allows us to, use a shield and truly protect us, rather than showing up and being authentic and letting the world know who we are. So as I mentioned, I had an example of when my friends, didn't invite me somewhere, I felt hurt, but my ego came to protect me. But it didn't have to protect me in that moment. These are my friends. So I consciously said, this is the wrong place for you to be at this moment. So I took over, and I didn't allow it to, not allow me to express my true feelings. So I did tell my girlfriends, yeah, I'm hurt that I wasn't invited to something. And that allowed deeper connection to happen between me and my girlfriends. So yeah, definitely sometimes, the ego will act or try to guard us and protect us and not allow us to really express our true feelings. Okay, so someone also said, Smooshy Badu, ego is one of the biggest headaches when trying to collab with other community work. Oh my God. Snaps to that. In a quick comment on that is, the ego will make you feel inferior or superior. So with organizing or collaborating with different people, that's when it comes in, because people want to be in the limelight. We want to be impactful, and really that comes down to the feeling of we want to be seen. We want to be worthy. But when it's the ego and not us, it might lead us in the wrong direction into really not doing what our purpose is of, educating or empowering the community. And instead it ends up being, a battle of, who's going to be in the limelight more, or, are you better than me? Am I better than you? When, if you have any thoughts of superiority or inferiority, that is the ego. Because the being, the essence, which is you, the true self, is always, always equal, because we are equal. Everyone is equal. Okay, strolling through. So just Jerson said, I do wonder of the interaction of alcohol and ego. Yes. Okay, so, wine and spirits being alcohol. My personal belief is, for me at least, when I have been under the influence, the ego has actually been in more of a control than ever. So I think it actually diminishes your presence in that being and your feeling more. So I don't have any study behind that, but I definitely wonder what studies have been done on that. And thank you everyone for being here, for commenting, for joining tonight. I am so excited. You guys are all great. Thank you for all the thumbs up, the hearts. I am so glad you guys joined. Okay, someone had a question. How do you differentiate between self-confidence and ego? Oh my God, that is such a good question. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. So, self-confidence or having a healthy confidence is not superiority or inferiority, because those two things are attached to something external. It's attached to a person, to an experience, to a title. So confidence is, there's a thin line between confidence and being. Because when you're just being, you don't need anything exterior to kind of make you feel good and be present. It's more of a feeling. When self-confidence could be attached to something. Although there can be a healthy confidence, you have to be careful, because confidence could very easily, go into being arrogant, and quickly into, being self-observant and, attaching to something. The ego likes attaching. So I would say, differentiating it's ego. The ego is an unhealthy self-esteem, and I think there is a healthy self-esteem, which is more of an awareness of what kind of person you want to bring out to the world and who you truly are inside. And I hope that answered your question. Okay. Someone commented on my eyebrows. Thank you so much. And yeah, and I got a last comment. It says, awesomely. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Again, if you think, someone could benefit from this video, from, this live, share with them. This is just, it was one of the most transformative tools or just understanding I could have ever gained in my life. Again, because I was very reactive. I was very attached to this identity of a collective thoughts that is not me, and just thoughts that came from, you know, people, experiences, and not really me, you know? So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited. Mondays with Love will be every Monday at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be speaking about different topics, or just, you know, maybe a book or an app or anything that has been, you know, key to my, you know, transformation as far as becoming more of a conscious being and being more aware of myself and being more authentic and being able to bring out the best of me to the world. So yeah, I hope you guys tune in. It'll be every Monday again at 8. You know, if you want to be notified, turn on your notifications, which is on my profile, the little 3 dots in the right corner, and you'll be able to log in. And that's all, guys. I am tuning out. Again, this was Monday with Lowe's. I am signing out. If you're joining, this is over. I hope you tune in Monday at 8 p.m. next Monday. And I have a list of topics from self-love to perfectionism to being authentic to vulnerability to true connections. And I actually believe next week's topic, I'm going to cover sisterhood, which is something that's also been key in my transformation. Again, I am signing out. So many kisses, so many love and light to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And if you are watching this and you know, and it's, you know, after the actual live, feel free to leave a comment. I would love to hear what you have to say, or even a question. And also, if you have any topics that you want me to discuss, make sure that you let me know. DM me, please, and have an amazing day, guys. Mwah, 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 mwah.